Hey there, welcome back to another Regular Guy Vikings Hour. Here we go, Vikings 4-0, right? How exciting is this? I mean, what does this call for? It calls for a little bit of purple Kool-Aid, doesn't it? So let's have a drink, shall we? Cheers. So we've got the Vikings-Packers review show, and so what we're going to do is we're going to start you out with the live game notes that I took during the game, which is always a lot of fun for me. I take this time, I mean, there was so much going on in this game. I actually took 5 pages worth of notes in my notebook, and I usually condense it down to about 50 really good nuggets that I just want to talk about on the show. As usual, I did notice I think before this 4 subscribers, which is like family and friends, right? But I did happen to notice a 5th subscription come across, so whoever that was, thank you for watching. And I appreciate it. And so for just anybody else who happens to catch my show, I'd love to get a thumbs up and I'd love to get a subscription and just continue to build this thing. So with that said, let's get into these live game notes, okay? And the very first thing that I made note of going into the game was that I couldn't believe that Jair Alexander ducked this game, right? Which is, I'm saying that jokingly, but honestly, I couldn't believe that he played because he talks so much, right, about this competition he has with Jefferson, and so I really thought he'd be playing, even though he had the questionable designation going into the game. So just very surprised he didn't suit up and play. I fully expected him to be out there. He was a part of my preview show. So him not being on the field, maybe it helped us a little bit. So I guess it was kind of a stroke of luck for us. All right, so 4th game in, Coach O'Connell finally lost a toss, but of course Coach Matt LaFleur deferred back to us to start the game, so our offense got on the field for the first time to start the game this year. He must subscribe to the same analytics that O'Connell does. And so in hindsight, I would have to think that LaFleur perhaps regretted giving that offensive momentum to us to start the game, because it ended up going leading us to a 28-0 lead to start the game. I mean, we practically owned the entire first half. So maybe LaFleur regrets doing that. I don't know if it's going to change any coach's opinion on the analytics in terms of deferring and trying to get that double dip to end the half and then to start the second half. But all I can say is that I think that in football, especially, momentum counts. Really happy that we got the ball to start the game, because right out the gate we took that momentum and we built up a 28-0 lead. And so obviously they started to come back in the second half, but we held on. Okay, so Sam Darnold on the very first drive of the game actually had a turnover-worthy play, and he had a handful of them in this game. But fortunately, I think it was a linebacker who actually kind of ran in front of that pass and trying to intercept it, but having poor hands, apparently he wasn't able to close on that interception. So they had a chance to change their fortunes early and kind of stop us on our early momentum, but as it turns out, couldn't hold on to it. Our drive continued, and we all know what happened after that. And I think really on that first drive, the Packers crowd was really feeling a chance to kind of really get into it early and just kind of just bring that noise and just really make us discombobulated. But on that long 3rd and 15 play, Darnold ends up hitting Naylor for a long pass, and then on the very next play, he follows it up with that big touchdown pass to Addison. So, I mean, what a great response by Darnold, especially after that bad throw. And then I think there was a penalty mixed in there, and then the crowd was really on top of us, and then he just follows it up with back-to-back beautiful throws, and just takes a stranglehold on like the early part of that game. Just a really well done by Sam Darnold. I mean, I love the way he's playing so far through 4 games, along with most everyone else. I mean, he's all that anyone's really talking about right now, which is great, because he's a great story. For me, and it's like, what, I will talk about Kirk Cousins quite a bit on this show. I know some people don't like that, but I mean, he was our quarterback for 6 years. We have a brand new guy now. We're off to a 4-0 start. I'm going to make a lot of comparisons, and this one in particular really struck me was that after bad things happen, whatever that may entail, a bad thing can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, but Kirk had a tendency to kind of turtle up in moments like that, and I just feel like Darnold has a little bit more moxie to him. He can bounce back better than Kirk could, and I just feel like Cousins played a little bit more in control, and Darnold has like a little bit of a little bit more flair to him. But he has, because of that, has a little bit more of an it factor to him, and I think that really plays well for a team like we have. Josh Jacobs, a little bit more purple Kool-Aid, don't mind if I do. Josh Jacobs actually gained 21 yards on his first 2 runs of the game. And at that time, I thought to myself, oh boy, this could be a long day. I mean, they could be gashing us with the run, right? They came into the game with the #1 rushing offense, which we all know about. So after those first 2 runs where he gained 21 yards, the Packers actually only gained 65 yards running for the remainder of the game, which is basically the entire game, minus those first 2 runs. So just well done by the run defense, well done by the offense getting us out to the big lead and kind of taking the run away from the Packers. So it looks like, what did they end up with? 86 yards running on the game after averaging over 200 yards a game through the first 3. So just, again, really well done by the team overall. To hold that Packers run offense down. So I talked about Matt LaFleur and his just kind of offensive scheming and play calling, and I talked about how he was going to use lots of motions, including what we call a ghost motion, where he runs the receiver kind of like around the quarterback to kind of throw the defense off, and sometimes the receiver may end up continuing the direction he's going, sometimes he'll loop back around. And on this particular play, I think it might have been on the Packers' first drive. What I think ended up it finalized that drive did with a missed field goal by Narveson. But on this particular play, Reed did a ghost motion, and then it was a flip play to Reed, which essentially kind of began for me the Jaden Reed show in this game. He is clearly becoming their #1 offensive weapon, and he killed us all day long. And so, as much as it pains me to say, I think that they have a real guy on their hands. I think Jaden Reed's going to end up being a real pain in our butts in the future. So look out for that guy because he's really turning into something. So on that same first drive, I believe it was, we had to burn a timeout because LaFleur and Love caught us on a quick snap. They were trying to. While we were trying to sub in guys on a 3rd down play. And it's just funny to me because the Packers have been pulling this move forever. I don't know if Favre did it necessarily, but I know Rodgers did it quite a bit. And so I think this is just a staple of the Packers' offensive style with LaFleur and whatever quarterback is on the team. It's just a Packers strategy. And so that's something you really have to watch out for with these guys. It's just they're always looking for these little edges to try and take control of the game and get a free 5 anytime they can get it. So really, really smart. I think that timeout really didn't end up hurting us in any way, obviously, because we had a great first half. We were up so much. But, man, KOC looked really ticked off when he had to burn that timeout so early in the game. So well done by LaFleur and Love, honestly. That was a good strategy by them. Despite the end result of the game, I really felt like LaFleur had an outstanding day of play calling. Just on several occasions, it seemed like they were always ready for our extra rushers. There were a handful of occasions in particular where whenever we would send an extra guy, right, if we had 4 rushing, we sent an extra 5th guy, Love was constantly getting the ball out into that vacated space. It was definitely something I think they game planned for and something that Love was looking for. Excuse me. And they burned us on several occasions using that strategy. So just a really well-executed game plan by LaFleur. I think that had Love not turned the ball over so many times in this game, and there were definitely some missed opportunities left on the field by the Packers offense, drop passes and things like that, the Packers could have really had a great day offensively, even more so than they already had, and they could have taken control of this game early. So in some ways we kind of lucked out because LaFleur and Love, they were definitely ready for us. And I think that after the game, I think Flores definitely noticed that LaFleur kind of had his number in this one. And so I just think that it's kind of good that it happened early in the year. We're still able to get a win out of it, and then Flores has a chance, and the defensive players have a chance to go back and kind of look and say, okay, where were we exposed? Where can we improve? So in a way, it may have been actually a good thing, and it's especially nice to pull out a win, even though some of these things were happening. So I think we can tell right away that the kicker is going to be a problem for the Packers all year long. And I'm very happy to say that for once the Packers are going to have troubles with the kicking game, even though they also did last year with Carlson. But he was actually pretty good in the regular season. Then he kind of reared his ugly head in the postseason and hurt them. But I'm just so glad that the concerns with the kicking game are on the other side this time, right? Because record's just been so solid for us. And now with them, I mean, who knows if they even keep Narveson as the kicker? Maybe they try out some new guys, and they could be a revolving door kicker for them all season long. But all in all, it's just I'm very happy to see that the problems are over there in Green Bay and not with us in Minnesota. Okay, so Darnold has shown me through the first 4 weeks that there's still a little bit of discomfort in terms of operating this offense. He had a couple of delay of games. There was at least one bad motion. There was at least one mix up on a play call where he just kind of just dove onto the ground and just ate the ball. And then he has a tendency to kind of just throw these odd balls. Sometimes he'll just dirt a ball out of nowhere. Sometimes he'll just throw a ball away for no reason. Even if he has a one-on-one on the outside. There was one kind of late in the game with Addison where I don't know, maybe he wasn't sure if he was supposed to throw to the pylon to throw a back shoulder. He just kind of threw it away. Addison looked a little bit perplexed. And so I just think the more the season progresses, if Darnold can start to clean up some of these weird, just awkward plays within the offense, I think that maybe it's going to help us get a little bit more clean on offense. Hopefully that stuff starts to go away over time. I'm sure there's a large contingency of older Vikings fans who were surprised to see the Packers out flagged in Lambeau Field. And I'm just wondering to myself, are the times changing? Are things getting, are they starting to shift into our favor? I don't know. But or maybe is it just that we have a more disciplined team now, and we have excellent coaching, and maybe there just was never really any conspiracy, and maybe it was just the fact that maybe the Packers were just better coached or more disciplined, and maybe the tides are turning in that way. Maybe they're turning in our favor now. But so I definitely have complained my fair share about calls in Lambeau in the past, but in this game, other than that weird call on the interception where they didn't overturn it, it was close, but I think overall it was a pretty well officiated game. Okay, so for Coach KOC, these kill style play calls in the red zone are kind of breathtaking in a way, because it could be almost as good as it gets. I mean, he's right up there with Andy Reid and McVay and Shanahan and even LaFleur in terms of just getting a quick scoring play when the team is either in the red zone, maybe they've been handed the ball off by the defense on a turnover or something. It seems like we are converting turnovers and good field position into touchdowns, and we're doing it right away. Case in point, that touchdown to Oliver was just such a beautiful play call. I mean, he designs such creative ways to get the balls into different guys' hands when he's down inside the 20 or down inside the 10. He's just such a brilliant mind, and we're so lucky to have him. I know I've said that many times, but I just love his just going for the kill style of play calling when we're down there in the red zone, and it's paying off so far this year. I think yet again we scored touchdowns on at least three occasions inside the red zone out of maybe 4 or 5 opportunities. So we're doing great in that arena so far this year. All right, so yet another interception by KGH, Kamu Grugier-Hill. And he actually got a little double dip himself on that one. He got the interception and he hurt Watson on the play, inadvertently, obviously, kind of landing on the back of his legs, and Watson ended up being out for the entire game. I mean, Watson could have been a real weapon for them later in the game, Reed, he's kind of more of a slot guy, right? He's more of a quickness guy. They're going to get him on some short stuff, and he'll get some yak. Watson's the down the field guy. I think Wicks ended up taking some of those routes later in the game, and he ended up having success. But I think Watson could have been more lethal and maybe a problem for us. So anyway, back to Kamu. He's kind of becoming a legend at this point. I'd love to see him get a little bit more playing time. Although with Pace coming back, I'm a huge Pace fan, as you know, so I'm okay with Pace, stealing those snaps back from Kamu. But it's nice to see it's nice to have him on the team and know that if Pace or Cashman go down, then we've got a guy like that who can come in and play pretty good. Okay, so let's not downplay this at any point in the year, please. Aaron Jones is amazing, and he makes this offense go. We are very lucky to have him. He's a difference maker. And, I mean, maybe it's been a minute since we've had this, but having a great running back, it matters a lot for having just an amazing offense. So just Aaron Jones, don't ever forget, this guy is making this offense go this year. He has been quite possibly our best offensive player to this point. I mean, what else can you say? He's been great. I want to talk about the kickoffs real quick, because after watching Riker just kick the ball through the end zone all game long yet again, it kind of occurred to me, this is definitely a strategy, because I thought maybe at some point they would try and start some different strategies in terms of kicking the ball short and trying to figure out some new ways to, find an edge against the other team. But I'm actually kind of fascinated by what's happening, and perhaps it's an analytical thing, I don't know, but maybe if you weigh the statistical analysis of the opposing team starting the ball with starting the game, or not the game, but the drive with the ball at the 30, and you kind of weigh those pros and cons, maybe it's just like a confidence in the defense, but you have to rely on your kickoff coverage team to make the stop before the 30-yard line. There's a potential for big plays. There's a potential for momentum shifts. And I just think that perhaps it's more effective to just let the other team have the ball at the 30 as opposed to risking those big plays and those momentum shifts. And so I think, and injuries, honestly, could also be a part of it. So I just think this is a strategy. They're saying we would rather mitigate the risk, kick the ball out of the end zone, give them the ball at the 30, not allow big plays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think maybe it's kind of going to be back to the drawing board for the NFL, because I think this is pretty common throughout the NFL where teams are just kicking the ball through the end zone. So I don't know what they're going to come up with, but for right now, teams are fine giving the other team the ball starting at the 30-yard line. Okay, Pat Jones had himself another sack for the game, which was actually our only sack of the game, which I was very surprised by. I thought we could get maybe upwards of 5, because I thought that Love's mobility would be bad. I thought he'd be kind of a statue back there. Turns out he does play from within the pocket, but his ability to read and react and get rid of the ball quickly and on time, and then he'll even stand in the pocket and take a hit when he releases the ball. I mean, he's a damn good quarterback, and so he's even willing to let long routes develop and take deep shots and take those hits. We didn't get a ton of pressure in this one, definitely not as much as we've had in the first 3 games, but I will say this, with as much as I respect Love for the way that he plays, I don't know if it's a good long-term strategy for him, because the more hits he takes, obviously, the more opportunities he's going to have to be injured. And I mean, he's already missed 2 games this year. So maybe that's something that comes into play later on. We don't know. But as of now, I do respect the way he plays the game. He's a damn good quarterback. He's going to be a thorn in our side for a while. Okay, hold on. Okay, I've been saying this all year, and I'm going to say it once more. That ball that bounced in front of the punt returner, that punt by Ryan Wright is intentional. I know it is. I've been watching him. I think he's done it at least 3 times this year. It worked yet again. The returner wasn't able to get to the ball. The ball rolled down. We downed it at the 5-yard line. This is a strategy that Wright has been working on. I don't think he's getting any credit for it. I want to point it out. Ryan Wright is doing some really good things in the punting game. Although in this game he was a little bit shaky. He had 2 good, 2 bad. And I'll point that out later. I loved seeing Shaq Griffin get that redemption interception in this one. I pointed out in my Go Look segment last week against the Texans that he missed out on a pick 6 where Stroud kind of tricked him and floated the ball over his head, and he ended up having to dive backwards and ended up being a pretty decent play to Tank Dell. Well, in this one, he was in the right place at the right time, and he got his interception. He didn't quite get it all the way back into the end zone, but still, way to go, Shaq. I was really happy to see him get that. All right. There was a catch. Yeah, there was a catch the catch by Justin Jefferson for the touchdown was incredible, where he just nonchalantly lets the ball float right over the defender's shoulder, because the defender, the cornerback, had great coverage on him. He was right on him, but he had his back turned. Jefferson just nonchalantly just lets the ball float right into his chest, grabs it, and gets the easy touchdown. I mean, it was so his greatness just shows in so many different ways, and it ended up not even being his greatest catch of the game, which is incredible. We're just so damn lucky to have this guy. We are watching greatness every single week. It's a treat, honestly. Okay, so I made a note during the live game about the turnovers on downs, and it got me to thinking about the defense on the day, right? Because the comeback, by the Packers, it was difficult to watch, but we had a total team effort in that the defense essentially had 6 turnovers in this game. And I think KOC even mentioned this in his either post-game press conference or one of the later press conferences in the week. But we ended up with 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 turnovers on downs. So when you take that into account, and then you kind of combine that with the fact that the special teams, the Naylor muff, and then the Darnold strip sack, right, giving the Packers great field position. Essentially, our defense really only gave up the equivalent of 2 long, drives, the length of the field style drives. So, in essence, when you compare 2 length of the field style drives versus 6 turnovers, that's a pretty damn good day from the defense, I will say. Just a note about the Packers offense, though. Love is great at throwing the ball down the field, no doubt. But he's not particularly accurate. This is something I noticed. There were quite a few situations where wide receivers were having to kind of reach for the ball. He wasn't hitting them in the numbers. And then in essence, because of that, the wide receivers ended up dropping a lot of passes. And so I just don't think their receivers have the best hands, and maybe it's something they can slowly improve on. But for now, they're a little bit problematic in terms of Love isn't overly accurate where he put with his ball placement, and the receivers aren't great about making difficult catches, and that hurts them offensively. Honestly, they left a lot of good plays out on the field. The Naylor muff was definitely the catalyst for the comeback, and what's weird is, and it just my note here is that for some reason right after that happened, our assholes puckered because I could feel it. I was basically kind of quiet during the first part of the game because I was almost shocked at what I was seeing. And then as soon as Naylor muffed that ball, I let out an audible F-bomb because I was like, here we go. This is the moment. I could feel it coming. And things just got tight. You could just feel that tightness come in. And I was like, man. And I thought maybe I'm imagining this. Maybe it's just me. I'm on a couch hundreds of miles away. But no, it was a thing. So I just hope we have a brand new culture, a brand new coaching staff. I was hoping that kind of stuff was out of our system. I mean, hey, football is football. This kind of stuff happens. But, man, I just wish that those types of momentum swings just wouldn't hit our team so hard because it feels like even when we're playing as well as we are, that just a-hole pucker moment just seems to show up and rear its ugly head when we just do not need it to happen. So I hope that kind of stuff goes away. I felt it. Okay, when that moment happened, I felt it. I knew it. That comeback, it felt inevitable, and I hate that I knew it was coming. Okay, so back to LaFleur. I thought he had a brilliant game plan ready to go. He specifically set out to expose our biggest weaknesses on defense, which in my opinion are Blake Cashman and Byron Murphy Jr. Cashman, I think, can be exposed. I find him to be just a little bit slow in the middle. He's not great about getting up and run support. He's not necessarily great in coverage, especially deep. I think he's more... Hang on. I think he's much, much better when he's not asked to drop so deep. If he's maybe asked to drop 5-10 yards and cover underneath stuff, I think Cashman is definitely a good coverage linebacker. When asked to cover the deep middle, I think he's terrible, and he can be exposed easily, and they did that in this game. And then Murphy, I've talked about this on several occasions. I don't want this guy playing extensively on the outside. He gets burned a lot on the outside. And when both of these guys in these fundamentally bad situations, they can be beaten thoroughly throughout the game. And LaFleur targeted them. He went after them, and it worked. I mean, throughout that comeback in the second half, it was those guys being beaten again and again, and I just was thinking to myself, oh my God, can we change things up and stop with this? So it's something to look out for going forward. Okay, Our offensive skill position players were the story of the game. Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison were the difference makers in this game. They made great play after great play after great play. And just, we are so blessed to have this group of playmakers. Then we have Hawk on the way. Again, I've talked about this before. I think we have the number one group in the NFL of playmakers at the skill positions in the NFL, period. We have the best ones. Once Hawk is back in a couple weeks, and we'll talk about that in a minute, we are in a great position. And if Darnold continues to clean up his game a little bit, man, we're going to be looking really good. The offense is hot. All right. I noticed that Darnold had a kind of a handful of really nifty scrambles in this one, picking up first downs and just, getting out of the pocket and just making something happen with his feet. And I love seeing that. It's a big part of his game, and I just really hope to see more of it because it's very effective. I said in my pregame or my preview show, don't test McKinney, man. Don't test him. What happens? We test him. We try and get that ball to Jones down the sideline. He picks that ball off. And I know the replay showed that he didn't necessarily catch it. He was bobbling it on his way down. But I'll say what happened. I know for people who are, again, the conspiracy theorists who are like, here we go again. Lambeau and the calls, right? I think what happened on that one was that because they called it an interception on the field, there wasn't quite enough evidence to overturn it because he literally was maintaining possession literally right as his elbow was going down onto the chalk. And I just think they thought kind of bang on that one. Difficult to overturn it, and so they just let it stand. And so I can at least forgive that, I guess you could say. I wasn't too upset about it. But it always matters. I say this every single time I'm watching football with somebody. It always matters the way they play, the way they call it on the field, because that goes. They have to then see enough evidence to overturn it, and that if they don't see, what do they call it, indisputable evidence to overturn it, they won't overturn it. Period. All right, so that turnover, as we were going for the kill, which I spoke highly of before, which I love the way that O'Connell does that. He goes for the kill, although on this one I think we were on kind of like an elongated drive. But that definitely had remnants of the 49er game where we were going for that kill shot. We just couldn't quite pull it off. But I will say this, don't get too upset about it, because if you look at the players who were making those plays, right? You're talking about Fred Warner, the all-pro linebacker for the 49ers, who made that great interception, right? And then he made that great punch out for the fumble on Jones near the goal line. Well, in this case, you had Xavier McKinney making a great interception, again, down inside the 5. And so I think sometimes it's just all-pro players making all-pro plays. And that is just the state of football. Sometimes greatness shows up when you least expect it, unfortunately for us. Although, again, we're 4-0, so in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. But sometimes they just get the better of you. And so it happens. And so it's like we can kind of move on from that. We can at least take a sigh of relief and just be like, you know what? Just a great player making a great play. It happens. Okay. The importance of Brandon Powell is so underappreciated and not nearly talked about enough. You saw it in that game, didn't you? He's out for one play. Jalen Nailor muffs the punt. The Packers get the ball inside the 5, and it's an instant touchdown, completely stealing the momentum of the first half, right? Powell is essential to the success to this team. Not only is he a great punt returner, but he never bobbles the ball. He never fumbles the ball. He's really smart about when to fair catch it, when to return it. He had a nice return in this game. We have to protect him at all costs, and so I'm tired of him getting these one-year deals. He's been on 2 consecutive one-year deals now. I love that KOC brought him over from the Rams. He needs to stay. We need to assign him to a longer than 1-year deal this offseason. Powell needs to be a part of this team going forward. Okay, I'm a big-time Powell supporter. Let's bring Brandon Powell back and keep him for a while. He is essential to the success of our team. Okay, so Ryan Wright is still hit and miss. He had 2 great punts in this game, and he had 2 crappy ones. He had a touchback where that was kind of an easy one, where he just could put that one up nice and high, get the returner to catch it at the 10, boom, easy, inside the 20. And then he had another one where I think maybe we needed a long one from him, and then he kind of hit a shorty. It was like a 40-yarder or something like that, like maybe even a net less than 40-yarder. So If he can start to clean up some of those bad punts and then combine it with what he's doing with some of these new unique ways he's punting the ball, I think that he's really kind of going to ascend to be one of the better punters in the league. But he's still young, still figuring some things out, but I have faith in him. So I hope that Ryan Wright is also in a free agent year, and I hope that we sign him to a long-term deal as well. I'd like to see him stick around. Okay, so I had this note. So it was 28-7, third quarter, and I literally wrote down a note in my notebook that said, I have weird nerves. For as good as we've been, we're making too many mistakes, and I'm worried. It's like, damn, how did I know? It's like just being a Vikings fan, you just know. It's just weird how it just, sometimes it manifests itself. I don't know, it's very strange. I hope we can get rid of some of that crap. Okay. On the Packers' second touchdown drive, Gilmore actually wasn't on the field, and I thought that was interesting. I wasn't sure if he was maybe injured or if he was just resting to keep his snaps down. I'm not sure. And also this note might be a little bit out of place because I actually inserted it after. I didn't make this note during the game. I actually made this note while I was reviewing the game, but I just noticed on that second Packers scoring drive that it was Shaq and Murphy on the outside. And I was like, where the heck is Gilmore? So interesting rotation of the corners there. I'm not really sure what happened, but that might have hurt us. I mean, maybe there's a play that happened somewhere in that drive that Gilmore would have made that maybe one of our guys didn't make. I'm not sure, but we'll see how that plays out the rest of the year. All right. For some reason, Blake Brandel cannot hold his water when asked to stay in his stance for a long cadence. He needs to work on that. He has false started on several occasions when we're trying to wind the play clock down. So Blake did not have the best game in this one, and I'll get to that when I get to my review. But that's just something he needs to work on. Okay, the Packers' offensive line played better than what I gave them credit for in my preview show. But I think that they looked better than what they really are, because oftentimes we would rush 3 or 4, and they can handle 3 or 4, right? There's 5 of them. They can handle 3 or 4. But especially in the second half when Flores would bring a 5th guy, it just felt like they were so prepared for that. I mean, Love was just getting the ball out really quick and just hitting the guy that was the hot route, where the defense had kind of exposed themselves. I mean, they were so prepared for it. So I think the offensive line looked really good because of the LaFleur game plan, and also just Love getting the ball out on time. So I don't necessarily think their offensive line is that great, but they definitely looked pretty good on Sunday, but better than I think they actually are. So we left a handful of short yardage plays on the field in this one. If we can start to convert some of those going forward, the games will continue to look easier and easier for us. We really, to this point, have only played one bad half. But I just think when it comes to 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, if you start picking up more than 50% of those plays, you're gonna continue to sustain drives, and it's just gonna be such an integral part of just us becoming and ascending to being a great team. So if we can just get better at converting on short yardage, where you're going to see this offense just rise higher and higher and just be better and better. I thought it was, at this point in the game, I thought to myself, man, hang on. I need lots of Kool-Aid to get through this. I felt like, boy, Love sure did recover from that sprained MCL quick, didn't he? Because he looked like there was no limitations whatsoever. It took him all of 3 weeks. That's a hell of a quick recovery, in my opinion. He looked almost unaffected out there, and as good as he's ever thrown the ball, in my opinion. So that was weird. Maybe the injury just wasn't as bad as we thought it was. When I did my preview show, I said that this game would either be close, it could go either way, or I thought that we could potentially blow them out. And although essentially that did come to pass, right, we got the big lead, we had the opportunity for the blowout. This one did come down to a close one, and it was kind of a toss-up, so to speak, at the end there. But losing was no longer an option. When you go up that big, if you manage to blow that game, you've lost not only the momentum of that game, you've lost the momentum of the season. So the fact that we were able to hold on really, really was meaningful to just the trajectory of this season. So thank goodness for that. Love being 4-0. Love being able to say 4-0 instead of 3-1, tied with the Packers on top of the division. All right, so I felt like Darnold was very Cousins-esque on that sack fumble, because it was exactly what we did not need in that moment. And Cousins was notorious for doing stuff like that. So I'm just like, what is that? Why do quarterbacks seem to make that play, that boneheaded play, in the exact moment when you don't need that boneheaded play to happen? It's almost like you could predict it. You can see it coming. Oh my God, it's 28-14. We're blowing this lead. Don't do anything stupid. Here comes stupid. And it's crazy. And I don't know if it's defensive coordinators understanding the moment and knowing when to send these like crazy blitzes with safeties and corners or what. But I don't know what to say. It just, I was like, oh my God, there it is, right on cue. It baffles me. Anyway, then Darnold follows that up in a very non-Cousins way after the momentum of the game has completely shifted against us, and the crowd is going completely nuts, and we need anything to happen to get this game back on track. He sucks it up, and he just throws some clutch passes. And of course, he's utilizing our Hall of Fame receiver. Finally, thank goodness. It just takes us right down the field, gets us that extra score that kind of helps put the game away in a way, because, otherwise the Packers were looking to kind of either tie it up or maybe take a late lead. I don't know. But he's got guts. Like I said before, he's got moxie. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from him, even with the mistakes, even with the mental mistakes, even with some of the weird throws. He has something to him. Like I said, a little bit of an it factor to him that I think is going to go a long way. We're going to see if he can keep this up for the whole season. I thought that Christian Darrisaw looked a little bit off in this game. He had a kind of a handful of kind of bad plays. I think he was still feeling the effects of the illness that he was dealing with when he missed some practice early in the week. So I really do look for him to bounce back and have a much better game next week. I just think he was a little bit under the weather. So don't worry about Christian. He's still grading out on PFF as one of the best tackles in the league anyway. But he didn't look like quite himself in this one. Those late game turnovers by Byron Murphy really saved his day, and quite possibly saved the entire team's day as well. I really like seeing him stay mentally strong throughout the game. I mean, he had really been kind of just tormented throughout the game. I mean, LaFleur was really going after him. He got burned several times throughout the game. For him to come back in that fourth quarter while the Packers were really putting the pressure on, for him to get that interception and then come up with that punch out for the fumble, I just thought, that's what I'm talking about. Way to recover, Byron. Good on you. That just really, really impressed me. He's got the mental game, and that's one of the things I like about him. I wouldn't mind seeing him coming back, but again, I want to see him more in the slot because he's a really great tackler, really good on playing the inside stuff. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Byron, even with some of the bad stuff that I see out of him as well. But I think he might be out of position, like I've mentioned before. Okay, there were 7 total turnovers in this game combined by both teams. And I actually talked about that in my preview, not necessarily about turnovers, but about there being a lot of big moments in this game. It felt like one of those playoff atmosphere style, just big moment after big moment type games, and then sure enough, that was the case. The momentum swings were just going back and forth, back and forth. So it was, I mean, for a casual fan of football watching this game, I bet it was a very enjoyable game to watch. I mean, for me as a Vikings fan, it was nerve-wracking. I mean, my stomach was in knots the whole time. I mean, not the whole time, but starting after the Naylor muff. But still, a classic Packers-Vikings game, just throwing punches left and right. Just really a lot of fun to watch, but just again, so glad to get the win. That catch by Justin Jefferson late in the game, that one on the sideline where they called incomplete originally, and then I think O'Connell, I don't know if he had to challenge it, and maybe they didn't use his challenge and just overturned it on the replay, or however that went down. All I know is that was a vintage Chris Carter style catch, and he made it look easy. I mean, it was clear that it wasn't even close. And is there literally nothing this guy can't do? He's good at everything. He's great at everything. I mean, just again, Justin Jefferson, Hall of Famer. Aaron Jones running out of bounds kind of late in the game. I don't remember if it was the very last drive or maybe the second to last drive, but I think there was around 4 minutes to go. We're trying to kill clock. He runs out of bounds. Kind of a rare mental mistake for him. Again, I'm still really high on him. 95% of the time, he's great. On the rare occasions he makes a mistake, it's like, okay, I can deal with that, but very unlike him, in my opinion. The 4th and 1 call was a little bit annoying for me, simply because It was our third time running that Naylor jet sweep play in 4 games, and I don't remember if each occasion was a fourth down, but I think at least one other one was, and maybe the other one was the third. I can't quite remember, but I just know that on those 1 yard need it kind of plays, he's run that Naylor play 3 times now. A little bit too predictable. I think the Packers were looking for it, and then we know how that ended up. And then also, aside from that, I am a little bit just miffed at the fact that we didn't just take the points there, because we were up by 9. A field goal would have put us up by 12. I mean, we're super close. That's a chip shot. That record's been solid. So even with the Packers kicker struggling, which I get it, I understand, I think that the difference between being up 9 and being up 12 is substantial, because if they get a touchdown and a field goal, they win the game. And 50-yard field goals in this day and age, 30 years ago, 50-yard field goals were kind of rare. Okay, now 50-yard field goals are common, even for a guy who's struggling. Okay, I'm sure he's got plenty of leg. I'm sure he can make a 50-yard field goal rather easily, which means you more or less only have to get down to the 35-yard line. I mean, technically, the 32. So the difference between the Packers maybe recovering an onside and getting the ball to the 32-yard line, which is 20, 25 yards away from a potential recovery, and then kicking a game-winning field goal, the difference between that and then forcing the Packers to actually have to score 2 touchdowns, in desperation, I just feel like, in my opinion, the analytics should have said yes, I get it, you convert the fourth, you close the game out, but forcing the Packers to have to score 2 touchdowns to win the game with such little time remaining, I think just a shade over 2 minutes with no timeouts left, I think would have been the better play, in my opinion, in that situation. But anyway, I digress. We ended up winning again. We're 4-0. Okay. I think we're still searching for our closeout mentality, and that's something that Coach O'Connell has really been wanting the team to have, and they just haven't quite had it to this point. They're really not putting games away accordingly. At least we did against Houston. We did not against the Niners. We did not against the Packers. And maybe it's just the quality of opponent, but I know that Coach O'Connell's been asking for that, and I think he's been coaching very aggressively, kind of almost willing his team to do it. And maybe this is just part of the process. Maybe this is a team that is ascending, simply just failing until finally succeeding, and then the success becomes easier and easier. So maybe this is just part of the process. But for now, it's not necessarily going like we've planned, but we'll see if this starts to get better going forward. And then just my final note on my live game notes is that we gave up a ton of yards in this one, and that's going to make our stats not look great. When you look at kind of the standings, right? When you look at passing yards allowed, it's not going to look good on us. But overall, our defense is very opportunistic. We get lots of sacks. We get lots of turnovers. We make stops on 4th down. And so if that's going to be the case all season long, I think even if they're going to give up some yards, I think with all of those factors playing into it, I think this defense is going to be plenty good enough for us to make a deep run into the playoffs. All right, so that does it for the live notes, and now we're actually going to get into what I call the Vikings Views, and I actually have quite a few of these this week. All right, so let's get a little bit more liquid refreshment. Okay, so the game review scores that I put together on a weekly basis, and we're going to get to those in my next segment, they have actually slowly dwindled down for the defense from week to week, and then the offense has actually continuously stayed at a high level every single week. And so I was interested in what I was looking at, and my end result, kind of in my thought process, is that I think this offense is just more efficient. So right now, this Vikings offense is scoring 29 points per game on 341 yards of total offense per game. That's our average right now. In 2023, we averaged 20.2 points per game on 348 yards of offense. In 2022, we averaged 24.9 points per game on 362 yards of offense. In 2021, we averaged 25 points per game on 363 yards of offense. And then in 2020, we averaged 26.9 points per game on 393 yards of offense. And ironically, on that note, you will notice a significant uptick between 2021 and 2020. And there was a huge drop-off after 2020 in terms of points scored per game by NFL offenses just across the board. So, like, for instance, the Vikings averaging 29 points per game this year is good for 4th in the league. And that would have actually been good for 3rd in 2023, 2nd in 2022, and 3rd again in 2021. But it would have only been good for 8th in 2020. And so I think that the NFL has shifted a little bit, giving a little bit more of advantage back to the defenses, or maybe it's just coaching styles or quality of players or quality of quarterbacks. I'm not sure. And it's something I'm curious about and maybe worth something that's worth investigating later on. But something's different starting in 2021. But again, this year's team, efficient. We're scoring 29 points a game on, honestly, our lowest yardage output per game in several years. So really interesting stuff. O'Connell's got it clicking, I think. And just a side note on this, no Kirk Cousins-led Vikings offense at any point during his tenure finished this season higher than 8th in points. Right now we're 4th, so we'll see if that trend continues. But Kirk got us no higher than 8th. Okay. I am skeptical about the national media love we're getting right now. So 1 week, they're still questioning our validity as a top team in the NFL, right? I remember watching one segment, I think it was on Good Morning Football, where they were like, hey, we've got some 4-0 teams, who do you want to talk about? Who can sustain the success? And, one of the guys was like, I'll take the Steelers. And I'm like, really, the Steelers? With Justin Fields? Are you kidding? Yeah, they have a great defense, but Justin Fields? Like, seriously? There was always somebody better than us. And so now suddenly, even with the second half collapse, with just one more game, one more win, now they've got us number 1 in the power rankings across the board. It feels like everyone's got us number 1 in the power rankings. I'm like, that's interesting. And I'm just like, what is this, like the wounded fan inside of me that feels like they're just intentionally preparing for our failure? They're trying to prop us up, just waiting for the fall. It's just the sudden anointing of us as like the number 1 team in the NFL. It feels a little bit disingenuous to me, and so I really don't like it. When I do my power rankings later in the week, you're going to see where I have the team. I still have them slowly climbing their way. I think that they're better than where I have them ranked, but again, I'm not ready to anoint them as the best team in the league just yet. They have a lot yet to prove. All right. So I talked about, and I don't remember if it was this last week or maybe the week prior, but I talked about getting ugly wins. And here we go. We got one. This was an ugly win. And so it's the Vikings fan in me, though, that I still felt gross after that game. I didn't really like it. But now that a few days have passed and I see that W in the win column and the 4-0 record, those feelings supersede the awkwardness that I felt when that game was over. And honestly, we just finally saw the Vikings play a bad half of football. And I'll tell you this, 1 out of 8 is a hell of a ratio, and I'll take that all year. So it's going to happen, right? The other team's going to show up to play. They're going to, some teams are just going to bring their A game. I think teams facing the Commanders are finding that out, right, with the way that Jaden Daniels is playing. I think people were like, oh, the Commanders, what do they win? 5 or 6 games this year? It's like, well, they're off to a 3-1 start, and Daniels looks damn good. So sometimes the other team just shows up and kind of shocks you, and I think we got that. And I think we all knew the Packers were good coming into this. But anyway, that comeback in the second half, again, I'll be totally real. I felt it coming. After that Naylor muff, I knew the game couldn't be a blowout. I even was feeling that even before the muff. When we went up 28-0, I felt it in my bones. There's no way we're going to blow this team out. This game's going to get closer. And I felt the nerves all game long. I let out that audible F-bomb when Naylor muffed that punt. And even as after, I was very subdued. I think I was pretty tired that morning, but I was very subdued. I was very quiet as I watched us build that 28-0 lead. Just feeling kind of, good, confident, but I didn't want to, I wasn't like screaming and like really over the top. And, by the time the game ended, I was just like full on trembling. Like I was just like, what did I just watch? And I'm so glad we were able to just squeak that one out. The clock mercifully ended the comeback attempt, because I just feel if that game was 5 minutes long, we might have been screwed. But fortunately, we won. Okay, our point differential in the first quarter through 4 games is 38-3. The Giants got those 3 points within like the first few minutes of the first game. Since that point, we've been dominating in the first quarter. I hope to see that trend continue, because we're front running right now, baby, and I love it. So we just got to learn how to like hang on to those leads for the most part. We've been doing about 50-50 to this point, but we're still winning. All right, so forgive me for looking ahead, but as a fan and as a person who talks to the public on camera, it's my job to do these types of things. But for me, the difficult part of the schedule isn't quite over yet. I think that the London game is kind of a weird game because it's out of your typical comfort zone. I think anything can happen. You're playing in a weird stadium. Just keep your fingers crossed that we just and just be constantly knocking on wood and just saying, hopefully we just keep the good vibes going and just keep getting these W's, and just pull out a win against the Jets, get out of London, come back to the States, be 5-0, get ready for Detroit, because the game against Detroit is going to be a showdown, and I'm so glad that the first one that we play is going to be in Minnesota, because we're going to need that home field advantage, because Detroit, they're off to a really good start themselves. But yes, again, I'm looking forward, but I'm going to say this: if the Vikings manage to start this year 6-0, we have the potential to be very special for the remainder of the season, and quite possibly maybe even be looking at like home field advantage in the playoffs, because after the Detroit game, we have 8 consecutive games against teams that are currently 500 or below. There's not one team on the schedule in those 8 games beyond the Lions that make you think, oh my gosh, who scares you? Nobody. I mean, who knows what our record could be looking at? So let's get this win against the Jets in London. Let's win that game at home against Detroit. Let's get to 6-0, and let's see how this thing plays out, right? All right. So last week I asked, show me the weakness on this team. And after kind of hemming and hawing on coming up with a different segment on another one of my shows, The Pick Show, I think I've identified one, and that is I'm going to bring you a segment where I'm going to be looking at teams that could be potential trade partners at the upcoming trade deadline, and some players that I think we could be looking at. And I just want to make a side note. I have seen Dexter Lawrence's name floated out there. Let me tell you something, guys. That ain't happening. Dexter Lawrence is 25 years old. He is a centerpiece of the Giants team. The Giants are not trading Dexter Lawrence. You can get that pipe dream out of your head right now. But I do have some really interesting guys that I want to point out. So later in the week, look for that. I'm going to have a show where I talk about just some really interesting players we can add, and I'm looking more on the defensive side, to be honest with you, because Hawk, he's going to be our offensive piece we add kind of like in the trade deadline, much like we did with 2 years ago when we brought him in for real. So anyway, so look for that later in the week. Okay. So speaking of TJ Hawkinson, on Friday it looks as if his 21-day practice window is going to officially open. Which means that he's going to be back for either the Lions or the Rams game, which is awesome because we need him in the worst way. Even though, as much as I've talked up the offense and for as well as they've been playing, our tight ends to this point in the year have combined through 4 games, 11 catches on 16 targets for only 81 yards. Okay, they do have the 2 touchdowns. Literally, Hawkinson could do that in 1 game. Okay, and I think he has. And I've really felt like there's been just one little thing missing from the offense, and that is a first down machine. A guy just sitting there, converting first downs. We haven't really had that piece. Jones has been great. Jefferson's been great. When Addison's been in the game, he's been great. When he's been out, Naylor's been great. We need that tight end. We need that extra piece of the offense that's going to bring it all together, and Hawkinson is that guy. So he is no more than just a couple games away, guys, and this offense is going to be really rolling. I can't wait. Okay. Let's talk about PFF just a little bit. This one's kind of long-winded, so I'm going to have another sip of the purple Kool-Aid. Don't mind if I do. All right, so we're talking about PFF just a little bit. There's been a lot of consternation about their grades this week. I think that Darnold was our lowest graded player of the week. So, as I mentioned in my intro video, if you haven't had a chance, please go back and watch that. I just I just explained who I am, how long I've been a fan, where I came from, and just, what I've been through, how I got here. So anyway, it's good stuff. Go check it out. Anyway, I worked for them for one season as a part-time analyst. It was last year. It's essentially an entry-level position, and I was up against, I don't know, upwards of like 1,000 different people, and it's almost like a tournament where they throw a bunch of stuff at you, and they're seeing how much you can absorb and how efficient you can perform. What's your accuracy like? How quickly can you do it? And so I ended up maybe being like one of like 200 people who ended up, getting that kind of like entry level job, that entry level position. So once I started working, even at my unimportant level of employment, right, I'm just like ground level. The amount of rules and double and triple checks was like insane. Like there was so much to remember all the time. There are levels upon levels upon levels of fact checking, backups upon backups. They do their due diligence. Make no mistake about that. They are extremely thorough. Okay. Where I think they go wrong, though, is that they're trying to quantify something that is essentially messy. And so, for lack of a better term, right, it's messy. It's guys smashing into each other, chasing a ball, and they're trying to like equate it, put numbers to it. And so that's the literal context they're trying to decipher. And that can be extremely difficult. So, because it is the way that it is, their methods have to be very all-encompassing. They have to be very stringent. Everything has to be super specific from top to bottom. Everyone has to follow the same rules. And there's no room for interpretation. It's all based on the processes, and the processes work for them because it allows them to really quantify what they're looking at and put numbers to it. So yes, I myself bitch about the numbers, but that's part of the fun, and that's why it's so enjoyable having those numbers, because it's a discussion point. It's something to talk about. So I'm glad PFF exists, because disagreeing with the grades is what makes the grading of the football players and games so enjoyable. So just for what it is, rejoice in this and enjoy it for what it is, because the days of just like looking at box scores and just being like, oh, well, this guy is good because he did this, statistically, those days are over. We have so much more information to look at, and it just makes it, I don't know, just to reflect on that, it makes it another facet of watching football that just makes it so much more fun. So I think, yes, of course, it's normal to bitch and moan and complain about the scores when they don't look right to you. But just remember, they're very thorough, but they have processes that they have to stick to from top to bottom. And so sometimes the grades aren't always going to jive with what you're seeing. But it's still fun. So take that for what it is. Okay. I think it's, speaking of PFF, I think it's really funny the heat that Ed Ingram has been getting so far this year, right? And he has been slowly moving his way up the guard rankings as the games have gone on. He started off really low, I think like second or third from the bottom after that first week going against Dexter Lawrence quite a bit. But I just thought it was really interesting because when I watched back Blake Brandel's game against the Packers, I saw him make several bad plays in the run blocking game. He had a penalty. And so it's interesting to me how I haven't heard anybody talking about Blake Brandel this week. Maybe it's because it doesn't fit the narrative. Because, Blake is... Ingram's on a rookie contract. He's not being paid a lot either. I mean, if he was making a lot of money, it'd be a much bigger discussion. But Blake's on that really reasonable contract, and it just, I don't know, maybe that makes him immune to criticism. I'm not sure. But I got so tired of the Ingram narrative. He came back with another really solid game against the Packers. And listen, I'm a Vikings fan. I want all of our players to succeed. Call it out when you see it, okay? If you're gonna bash Ed Ingram week after week because he has a bad game, and sometimes he did have a bad week, and you need to, and other times it's just because he has that name you want to go to. Oh, Ed Ingram, replace him, Ed Ingram. Well, Blake Brandel didn't have a good day. Call him out too, okay? Fair is fair. All is fair in love and war, as they say. Okay. The Sun in the Packers game was their 13th man. There were 3 plays in this game where the sun affected us. Unfortunately, only one hurt us real bad, the Naylor Muff. Obviously, the other two weren't as big of a deal. Myles Gaskin bobbled a kickoff almost like immediately after that happened. And then Metellus had a really easy interception that he just missed because I think the sun got in his eyes. And that's actually one of my go looks, so I will show you that one. And I think that drive ended up ending in a missed field goal anyway, so it didn't end up hurting us. But man, the sun really played a factor in this game. It was kind of annoying. Okay. Love throws the ball deep a lot. Like a lot. And it's not that he's 100% effective when he does it, but just that constant pressure of making the secondary make a play. It's just so palpable. They're always having to make a play on the ball. They're always trying to avoid a penalty. It just must be exhausting on secondaries. And I just feel like Love is the exact style of quarterback that gives our style of team the most problems, because we just have so much trouble with that constant pressure on deep balls. And if it weren't for the fact that our DBs actually kind of played a really good game, aside from, a couple of struggles here and there, and then their receivers dropping balls and maybe some of his balls not being accurate, it could have been a really big day for him. It could have been they might have blown us out if some of this stuff had gone the other way. So Jordan Love could be a problem going forward. He attacks the deep field a lot, and it can be problematic for us. Anyway, I don't look forward to seeing him, I tell you that much. All right, we need more depth to be active on game days along the defensive line and in the secondary. On that final drive where the Packers literally, after they stopped us on fourth down, they drove the length of the field in like less than a minute, literally all five of the guys who at one point or another on that drive that got burned had all played a majority of the snaps for the game. They ended up, all of them, with 70-plus snaps, and that was Cashman, Metellus, Harrison Smith, Byron Murphy, and Cam Bynum. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to force these guys to play almost all of the snaps. You can rotate in some other guys. And we have guys on the roster who are available to come in and give them a rest. So I really hope to see that change, because clearly with how much time the Packers possessed the ball and how many plays they ran, our guys were exhausted by the end of the game, and it about nearly cost us the game. Okay, so I know one player in particular. Hold on. Yes, so here we go. This is leading me into my point. I noticed that when Kamu Grugier-Hill was not in the game, and Cashman was coupled with another linebacker, it most certainly was not Brian Asamoah. It was actually Josh Metellus. Josh Metellus was coming up into the box and playing as a linebacker. I saw it on multiple occasions when I did my game review. And so it's clear to me they don't trust Brian Asamoah to be on the field playing defense. We're already past an hour, by the way. Okay. Therefore, if you don't trust Asamoah to play defense, and he's not moving the needle at all on special teams, then why is he active on game days? You can use at least that one spot to have a guy like Levi Drake Rodriguez or Dwight McGlothern on the active roster and available to come in and give these starters a breather, because the starters, let's not do that Donatel thing. Let's not wear down the veterans and the first stringers throughout the course of the year and make them look like crap later in the year because they're just so worn out and exhausted. Let's get these young guys some snaps, especially, we could have been doing this in the second and third quarters when we were up by 4 touchdowns, but instead we're just playing the ones continuously, and I don't think it's necessary. So that completes my Vikings views. All right, so now we are actually going to move on to my Game 4 review, and with us being past an hour, I'm going to try and go through this relatively quickly, so let's do that. Let's pull up the spreadsheet, okay? Here we go. Now, starting on the defensive side, I actually, for the first time this year, I actually had red versus green. I have us at a -3. The Packers really exposed us in this game, and we ended up being more or less kind of even throughout the day. But the Packers, they had a heck of a day offensively and exposed us a little bit. So just some of the better players I saw on defense in this game. I thought Shaq Griffin had a solid game. He was my highest graded guy at only a +3. which that's like I think the lowest of my highest guy throughout the 4 weeks. Thought Jonathan Bullard had a couple of nice plays. I thought Pat Jones had a couple of nice plays. I saw Dallas Turner out there had made a nice play in coverage. Although I will say, and he actually did have at least one pass rush that I saw where he damn near got to Love. He almost, when Love was pulling the ball back, he damn near got his hand up and strip sacked him. So it was, I think Dallas, he should be earning himself more and more snaps. He's starting to get there. I thought Camus had another really solid day. He ended up at a +1. I thought Stephon Gilmore, he's not really getting a lot of play simply because teams aren't throwing at him. But when they do throw at him, he's solid over there. He ended up with a +1. Van Ginkel, or Van G as I call him, this was an even day for him. This was kind of like the first game he really didn't pop. He looked maybe a little bit slow out there. I don't know if something's up with him. Maybe he needs some rest this week. I'm not sure. Cam Bynum had kind of an even day. He gave up that super easy touchdown to Wicks on the Packers' final touchdown where Wicks just kind of came in right behind them. It was almost as if Bynum didn't even know he was there. Byron Murphy, he evened out his day. He ended up at a -1. I had him with a lot of red early in that game, but man, those 2 turnovers that he caused late in the game, that really helped. I mean, just way to go, Byron. I was so happy to see him really recover his day with those late game heroics. Harrison Phillips had kind of an even day. He was at a -1. Not really much of a factor. He got exposed in run defense a couple of times. Grenard, kind of a nondescript day. I think he missed a tackle, had a penalty. He ended up at -1. Harrison Smith, he missed that tackle on the Kraft touchdown. I think was maybe their 3rd touchdown of the game. So a -2. So Harry didn't have his best game, but overall he's solid. We know we can trust him. Tillery, I think, is a little bit of a liability in the run game, and he's proving that he's more interested in kind of rushing the passer and getting upfield than he is playing the run. So these are moments where I think a guy like Levi Drake Rodriguez or LDR could really help us out by getting a little bit more playing time, or maybe even having Taki come in to play nose and moving Harrison Phillips out to one of the other defensive line positions. But either way, I think Tillery snaps need to come down just a little bit. Hang on. Okay, Josh Metellus had a little bit of a rough day. Again, he was kind of asked to play out of position. He was playing a little bit more linebacker in this one, and so I can see Josh is definitely a Swiss Army knife, and he plays all over the field, but I think he's definitely better playing where he's most comfortable in the safety position as opposed to being asked to come up and be a linebacker. And then, again, I know people think that I don't actually hear this, but I would assume if people were watching the shows, they would think that I'm hating on Blake Cashman. The thing about Blake is this: on short coverage, he's effective. Deep coverage, not good. And I need to see more from him in the run game. He's way too willing to just run right into whichever second-level blocker is coming at him as opposed to trying to make a play. Because you are not necessarily the last line of defense, but you're the guy who's supposed to be making the tackles, not taking on blockers. Okay? So, Blake, less of that, more shedding blocks and making tackles before guys have already run 4 or 5 yards. Because then by the time you get your hands on him, he's falling forward for another 2, and you have a 7 or 8 yard gain. So I need more from Blake. I need more. Even with him being all over the field, I need more. Okay, so let's talk about the offense. I had Aaron Jones at a +13. Another great game for Aaron. I had him with 11 green runs. He was phenomenal throughout this game, whether it be breaking off big runs or picking up first downs or grinding for extra yardage. This guy is legit. Finally, Jefferson played a full game, and for a guy who's a receiver where you only really get to grade him, although I did have him in the green for 1 run blocking rep, where actually that's one of my go looks. He created 2 penalties, had a number of phenomenal catches, had a touchdown. He had a great day. He played the full game, ended up at a +8. And then Jordan Addison ended up with a +6. That one catch in particular where he literally went up as high as he could and brought that ball down on that ball that Darnold threw a little bit high. That's about as good as a catch as you'll ever see. In terms of that style of catch, right, where you're going up for a ball like that. I mean, so again, I talked about our skill position guys. really being the difference in this game. Jones, Jefferson, and Addison were all phenomenal in this game. I had Oliver having a really, really solid game. I saw he was on the injury report. Today's Wednesday with a wrist. Hopefully he plays again because we need Oliver. He's really pivotal in the run blocking, and he can occasionally be an effective pass catcher. Brian O'Neill, I thought, had a really good game. I got him as a +2. He had several really nice run blocking reps. Johnny Munt, I'm going to point him out in a go look as well. He had a decent game. I've kind of talked a little bit down on Johnny. And yes, I do want his snaps to go down clearly when Hawk comes back. But for now, he's really filling in. He's at least good. He's good enough. And so that says something. So Darnold, again, we talked about PFF scoring him low, right? Well, I had him technically up for the day at a +2, but I had him down for 6 throws that I didn't necessarily like. I had him down for 4 mental errors in addition to all those touchdowns he threw. And then, of course, he had a couple of turnovers. But all in all, still a solid day from Sam. The Packers really kind of threw everything they could at him, and he still came out of the day positive. So take that, for what it is. Brandon Powell had a positive day. He doesn't make a huge impact on offense, but when you call on him, he's always there for you. Ed Ingram I had as a +1, and again, I've talked about this. When it comes to the secondary on defense and the offensive line on offense, you want these guys to be invisible, because when you don't talk about them, that means they're having a good day. And Ed Ingram wasn't talked about hardly at all. He had one really, really good run blocking rep that I saw and wanted to note. But other than that, Ed was invisible, and that's a good thing. He didn't even have his one oof play of the game, which I thought, hell yeah, Ed, you're making progress. All right, Sherfield, I thought, had a good run blocking rep. CJ Ham had one good, one bad. Garrett Bradbury, man, he had a crazy-ass game, right? This was the Kenny Clark game. He ended up being even. He had some good, some bad. But I tell you what, if there's one thing that Garrett Bradbury is great at, it is getting out on screens, blocking on screens. He is excellent at the second level. So for nothing else, Garrett Bradbury in the passing game, he's a weapon. So look for more of that, because he's been really good. Pay attention to when Garrett gets out to block on those screens. Okay, Jalen Naylor, obviously an even day. I had him as bad on the run, not picking up the 4th and 1, but also had that great catch on the first drive. Ty Chandler really didn't play much. I had him even. Christian Darrisaw I talked about before. I thought he was still feeling a little bit sick. I had him in a -3. There were a couple of different run blocking reps where he just didn't quite get to his guy, and it stuffed whoever it happens. And then Blake Brandel, like I talked about, I thought he had the worst day on offense. He had several bad run blocking reps and a penalty. So again, if you're not going to talk about Blake when he plays bad, then don't talk about Ed either. I mean, that's my opinion. Okay, so then on special teams, Caleb Evans had a great punt coverage rep. Brandon Powell had a great punt return. Josh Oliver, I gave him kudos for recovering the onside, because you need that. You need that one guy to hold on to the ball and close out the game. Ryan Wright had an even day. I saw 2 great punts, 2 bad punts. Myles Gaskin bobbled that kick return, kind of bothered me, and then Jalen Naylor, of course, with that muff was just the worst play of the game. But overall, I had the offense, the special teams being even. And then I forgot to mention the offense. I had a +30, which again has been kind of the norm for them through 4 games. They've always been plus high 20s or 30s in every single game. The offense has been playing really well. They're rolling. When Hawk comes back, expected to get even better, so long as Darnold continues to play the way he's playing, cleans up some of these mistakes. I think our offense, as much credit as the defense is getting, and for as well as Flores is coaching them, I think the offense really is the piece of this team that could potentially lead us to the promised land. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, so now we're ready to more or less wrap this show up. We're going to bring it back to main cam. We're going to do a little graphic here for the Go Look. Are y'all ready? Let's go.
Go Look.
Nice. I love that one. It's got a little bit of a Tecmo Super Bowl kind of a feel to it, right? I put a little bit of kind of fuzziness on it, like you're looking on an old TV. So anyway, let's come on over to the browser. Let me just get this set up. Okay, let's transition over. All right, we're going to do our Go Looks here. Okay, we got 5 plays that I always like to point out. This first one, this is the touchdown to Addison on the very first drive. And what I want you to look at, I'm going to bring my cursor over here to kind of show you. Watch our offensive line have perfect protection while Darnold steps up into this pass, and then Darrisaw has a one-on-one on the outside, and he's handling this guy easily. But just watch this perfect protection as Darnold delivers this touchdown pass to Addison. It's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. Pause it right there. Do you see that? Do you see this? Look at this. Look at that. That's the best protection you can possibly have. Addison, meanwhile, is burning his guy. Darnold sees it. He's ready to unleash this ball. And you got a touchdown pass right there, baby. That's as easy as it gets right there. That's perfect offense. Kill shot. Okay. All right, let's go. Okay, next play. What do we have here? Oh, yeah, this is a running play to Aaron Jones. So let's just rewind it just a tad. What I want you to pay attention to on this one, in addition to Jones having a great run, I think he runs for like 15 on this play, Justin Jefferson out here has an amazing block down the field. It may not even be on this corner. It might actually be on a safety that we can't even see on the screen. And then watch Johnny Munt take this defensive end and just turn him out and open up a huge hole for Jones to run through. So just keep your eye. Jones, runs. Watch Munt early as he turns out this defensive end. And then watch Jefferson down the field as he takes on this safety and just allows Jones to gain more and more yards down the field. It's so great. All right, watch this. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Look at that. Here, I'm going to rewind it just a tad so you can see it again. Watch it again. Nice. Jones wiping off his chest there. Okay. Okay, that was a little bit wonky, but it's all right. You saw the play. You can always go back and rewind it if you want. Just watch that great blocking. Okay, this one I believe is the Metellus ball that he loses in the sun. So you watch this. You're going to see Love throws this ball deep. It's kind of a duck, honestly. It's very wobbly, and it kind of hangs up in the air. And I'll pause it when it gets up there. Here you go. He steps in. Wobbly duck. Okay, Metellus, if you look right here, Metellus has this ball lined up. He's got this. This is his. The Sun gets him on this play. This is the 13th man in this game. So watch him as he just completely loses this ball in the air. He ends up tipping it away, but man, he had an interception all the way on this one. Just totally threw him off. Plus, maybe the spin on the ball was kind of weird too, just because it was wobbly in the air. But anyway, I don't know if it was windy that day or not. Somebody at the game could tell me. I'm not sure. Although I still have yet to get my first comment on any video, but so if anyone would like to comment and tell me, please do. Okay, what play do we have here? Let's take a look. Yes. Okay, this one I wanted to point out because Kenny Clark damn near ended our year. Watch as Kenny Clark right here swim moves Bradbury and then literally dives into Darnold's knees as he's delivering this ball to Jefferson. This scared the crap out of me, and there's actually a secondary view that we'll show right after this. So watch this. Keep your eye on Clark right here. Diving right into Darnold's knees. It looks bad on that. Then you see it. There's a JJ or a Jets finishing off that run there. Okay. So then watch this. They're going to show a little replay here. Watch as Clark, 97 right here. Here's Darnold delivering this ball to Jefferson. You can see with his body language there, he's expecting this hit. And Clark is just right into the legs. And, I mean, Darnold does a good job of backing up. But, man, that was a close one. I mean, Clark was really doing his... I mean, on that play, he owned Bradbury. And he about nearly ruined our season. So, thank goodness Darnold was able to kind of back out of that one. But, Kenny Clark, watch yourself, man. Okay. So, there's that one. Here's our final play. This is the 4th and 1, okay? I talked about this. This play felt predictable. But what I wanted to point out was this. Sherfield... What he's supposed to do, I believe, is block this guy, kind of like chip him in a way, and then get out to this guy. It's going to be Jones's job to actually get up into the hole and finish off the block on this guy. Okay, and Naylor is supposed to turn this ball up immediately. What happens is, after Sherfield does the chip and moves out to the secondary guy, Jones thinks the play is going outside. He continues to run outside, leaving this guy without anybody blocking him. And Naylor delays the turn up, he ends up slipping and not converting on the first down. And I looked at the replays. His shin was down. He was technically down before the line to gain. So it was a good call. But just watch this play develop. Okay. So you see Sherfield right here chipping this guy, getting out to this guy. Jones is supposed to turn up and get this guy. He ends up going back to the outside. Naylor needs to be turning this ball up now. Now. He does not. And this, I believe it might be this linebacker who gets him, but we'll see how it plays out. No, it was that guy I talked about. And he just, it's a good hit. It's a good tackle. This guy makes a good play. So watch him right here. He gets chipped by Sherfield. Jones is supposed to get him, but instead he just ends up making the play on Naylor. Naylor just takes too long to turn that ball up. Just a good play. Just a good play. So what can you say? We ended up winning, but kudos to the Packers on that one. So anyway, I have gone way over an hour. This was a regular guy Vikings hour and 20 minutes, right? And how do we end every show, guys? You know the mantra. Play vicious, be victorious. Peace.